Hello, everyone. Rather than review the Machiavelli discussion board, I thought I'd make a general video about discussion boards and about writing, since we have the first essay assignment coming up. I want to say, first of all, that there is some really good work done on the Machiavelli discussion board, and I just chose to do something a little different this week. And the reason I chose to do something a little different is because, yes, there was some really good work on the Machiavelli discussion board, but there was some work which was not impressive either. There was some other work which I was not impressed by. And it seemed to me that even though the discussion board is a completion assignment, insofar as if you actually do the posts as I've asked you to do them, you get full credit for it. It's not a graded assignment, but the essays are. So I wanted to point out some things about the discussion board, some faults I saw in some posts that are chronic faults. They show up every week. And I wanted to talk about them really with two ends in mind. First of all, to improve the quality of discussion on the discussion board. And secondly, to warn you off of certain habits of writing, academic writing or writing for this class, that will not serve you well in the first essay, which is a graded assignment. So I'll just go over a few things here. And I don't mean to be snotty, or just want to point out a couple things that I've seen, and you make of them what you will. First, in all writing, whether it's a casual discussion board post or a formal essay on an academic subject, say you're going to write about Aristotle or Dante or Machiavelli and focus on something, you want to avoid generalities. Here are some examples of generalities. And there's a second part of this, if you give me a moment. You want to avoid generalities. It was interesting, or it wasn't interesting. I enjoyed it, or I didn't enjoy it. It was hard, or it was easier to read. I liked it, or I didn't like it. I agree with him, or I don't. There's nothing wrong in itself with saying things like that, except that you're not really saying anything yet, if you know what I mean. Again, in casual writing, it's fine. We're just writing a discussion board post. We're trying to get our initial thoughts together. But my big point is, you don't want to stop there. You simply have to get concrete. And that's what I say here at the end. You have to get specific. I want to hear your subjective take on the reading. I want to hear your personal. How did you like it? What did you think of it? But it has to go beyond the generality. Well, I liked it. It was good. It was interesting. He made a lot of good points. Or I don't like it. It was boring, or it didn't make a lot of good points. You have to go beyond that. When I say be concrete, well, what is it in this particularly? Why did you like it? And don't because it was good. I mean, you don't want to be too circular here. You want to get down to something granular, as they say, some point, some specific point in the reading that you're responding to. So you definitely want to avoid generalities. Things like this are fine, again, in casual writing. But in like writing an essay or writing an exam answer, it doesn't help at all to state a generality. You've got to do some thinking here about the particulars of the reading, be concrete. And then secondly, make a point. That's not so important in a discussion board, but even in a discussion board, make a point. Say something about the reading. Say something particular about the reading. Say something about the reading that's not obviously true. For instance, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay afterwards to say, well, I changed my mind about that. Well, we're always changing our mind about things, especially difficult things like the things that are brought up in the readings. But don't be afraid to make a point, make a claim. And that claim should be specific. Something about, I disagree with Machiavelli. Well, why? What was it particularly where he went wrong? Show where he went wrong. So you want to avoid the generalities. You want to avoid being bland. Being bland is where you stick to generalities, you say something general, and you never really fill it in with content. So definitely make a point. Now that is a bigger issue and a much more important piece of advice when it comes to writing the essays. Your essays have to have a point, right? you're saying, well, this is the most important idea, or set of ideas in these readings. This is what I want to focus on. It's this, and here's why. And so it should have focus, right? Showing why this is important, why this is interesting, not just claiming that it's interesting or saying in some general way that it's interesting. Showing, getting down to the nitty gritty, let's say, getting down to specifics, getting down to detail, doing critique, real critique. So it's not really that important in a discussion board, although it definitely makes things more interesting, but it's very important in writing an essay. The last point I want to make is, in a discussion board, it's an ungraded assignment. So it's not as important as in a graded essay. But whenever you're writing something as a student, you want to show your reading. It's not like we want to show off. And it's not like we want to fake it either. But you want to, there's nothing wrong with sort of saying, yeah, I mean, I looked a little further than the surface of this reading. And I got beyond the first paragraph. And I got beyond the parts that you referred to directly, perhaps in your videos, if you've been watching the videos. And especially because we started with this greatest hits list, I got beyond the part that was quoted in the greatest hits list. Make an effort to talk about things that don't appear in the greatest hits. There's nothing wrong with focusing on the things that do. There's also nothing wrong with getting farther into it and being more original and not. I mean, that greatest hits list is just a personal list that I made of things that I thought were prominent and interesting. But there's much more in all of these readings than that. So there's nothing wrong with showing off a little bit, right? Hey, I read this. I understood it, or at least I understood some of it, or to some degree. And referring to parts of the reading that aren't quite as obvious. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I encourage you to do that. And when a teacher is looking over work, even ungraded work, and they see something by a student that refers to a part of the text that has not already been mentioned by the teacher, they're impressed. They like that. It shows that you're doing the readings, and it shows that you're thinking about it, and you're spending time thinking about it and not taking the easiest or most obvious choice of where your focus will be. Again, not to say that it's wrong somehow to focus on those quotes that do appear in the greatest hits list or do appear in the videos. That's absolutely fine to do, but at least once in a while, you should be coming up with something new and different. So this is just, suggestions. Nothing wrong. Discussion board's good. But it is symptomatic. I teach a lot of online courses, different schools have for a long time. Discussion boards can tend to devolve into blandness. It just becomes something you have to do, and you get it over with, and you respond to somebody else. And that's too bad, because this is an opportunity to exchange ideas. But the thing about exchanging ideas, you have to offer one. It has to be something beyond a generality, something that shows your work, your reading of the thing, your comprehension, your ideas, your conceptions that have occurred to you as a result of your work reading. So again, there's nothing wrong with showing that off to a certain extent, right? That I've read this. Here's what I want to talk about. It may not be the most obvious thing.